Oh, like we know what we're doing. All right, we're going to play a new game here. Is this smudge or is this coffee? Oh, I already screwed it up. Is this smudge or is this coffee? It's coffee, everybody. It's coffee, everybody. Fresh brewed. Sorry, it took me a second. How are you doing, everybody? Welcome so much for tuning into the Energy Report. Holy Toledo, here we go. Let's turn on the heart light. Let's pay attention to a young boy's dream. By the way, heart going out to those in California, Southern California. Actually, all of California. And it's funny, we're going to talk a little bit about our misconception across the country about the amount of wildfires that actually happen in California. It's I have my own experiences with this as well. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about we're going to talk about the wildfires, but we're also going to talk about Denmark, and we're going to talk about Greenland, and we're going to talk about why in the hell would we ever take over a sovereign country on a whim. I totally just went Neil Diamond. You are correct on that. Hey, Paula, how are you? Brenda, Tart and Spice, good to see you. We've gotten your manuscript in the right hands. Expect some follow-up here shortly. Julie, good to see you. Michelle, always good to see you. Phoenix, I am looking for your email. You sent it to me. I'm in. Just have to find it. Follow up here as I pull out my hair. Connie, thanks so much for being here. Warrior Widow, thanks so much. Carolina, I see you there. Boy, you guys are chatting up a storm here. Crafty One, good evening. Jacqueline, how is it going? Saying hi to as many of you as I see here. Thanks so much for tuning in, being here. Hello, Joanne. How are you? Greetings from Texas. I heard it was cold. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Just got your message as I was tuning in, so I'm going to make sure that that's right as well. I do pay attention, guys. I do pay attention. And then sometimes you tune in and you're like, did he actually get my thing? And yeah, I got it. I just had a chance. It's kind of a thing. So what's going on in the news? Huh? What's going on in the news? And son of a gun, did I just upload this? I totally just uploaded this without the astrology on it, but I'm gonna make sure I fix it. I'm gonna fix it. So, a couple of things on the horizon here. So this time next week, we'll have an inaugurated new president, old president. We're not really good at like making decisions here in the United States. How do you feel today? How do you feel today knowing that any of the stuff that we might have, said, I mean, it's in plain sight. We've got a Nepo baby, brat basically pulling the strings of a president. He basically paid for his time there. And you can say whatever it is that you want. You can say, well, where's the proof? And I'm just going to be like, well, for starters, I know it's not in the basement of a pizza place in D.C. We got that going for us. We're going to be a little more concrete than that bullshit. I'm feeling it tonight, everybody. I'm feeling it. I'll also tell you that, one of the other feelings that are here that are really kind of part and parcel what I think the American public is feeling, if I can be so bold as to take a jump here, there's a sense of apathy. There's a sense of, well, we're just going to push this through until it gets there. And I don't really care how much or how little you're going to resist. We're just going to take it anyways. And there's a certain amount of this that is, without a doubt, just the bully mentality about who, what, where, when, how we were fighting to begin with, right? And you start to come to a realization that you're like, I shouldn't have had to fight this hard. I shouldn't have had to fight in a way that I needed to convince you to do the right things. Those of you that know, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. Those of you that know, my team's already out. Those of you that know, I'm not mad. Frustrated, but I'm not mad that they lost. I'm mad that the referees actually had a say in the game. And it's not even that it was such an unprecedentedly bad call. And when I say bad call, I mean epically bad. So the quarterback, Stafford, Rams, got him in the grasp, and he does one of these. Bloop, with the ball. Clearly comes out of his hand. Clearly is like a manipulation of whatever. And if you watch it, you're like, how is that not a fumble? Then they're like, well, it was a forward pass. Really, it was a forward pass? He basically had his helmet shoving up his ass. I mean, he was crowning, but it was still up his ass. You got to admit. But for some reason, they were like, oh, no, he was clearly, it's just his passing style. It's the way that he does it. I'm not mad, but I have a really hard time. I have a really hard time thinking that was done in good sportsmanship. I have a really hard time that Matthew Stafford isn't the same. Because, and by the way, Matthew Stafford never would have done stuff like that. He's a competitor. I mean, the guy went out with a broken clavicle in a 5-13, 5-12 team. Was it 5-12? Were they 5-12? No, they were 5-10. This is when they still played 16. They were 5-10. They were in the last game of the year, and he came back out with a broken shoulder, clavicle. Throws one pass, doubles over. His season was over anyways, but he goes, I'm not going down without a fight. Like, this guy's a competitor, and I appreciate that. But not the guy I saw last night. Dare I say that we're beginning to see the Trump effect? The Trump effect of, like, when you see it, and again, in the lexicon of football, and I know I don't talk football so much, but when I use these examples, you'll understand it. Every single throw down field is an offensive player throwing up his hands, go, oh, where's the flag? Where's the technicality? We're literally looking for technicalities now in everything that we do. Or we're manipulating the technicality. Well, I threw the ball like this. Like, that's my throwing style, underhand, under my armpit. But that's a forward pass. Well, I'm sorry, what? Now, in all fairness, he did it by his own fruition. He threw it out of his hands. Right? So it's like, okay, well, you were in control of it. That's not a pass, though. That's a baby bullshit move. It's a baby bullshit move. And thanks to Donald Trump, thanks to the new line of thinking, we have baby bullshit rules. We don't have the spirit of the law anymore, because the spirit of the law would have his ass doing time. But the baby bullshit rules allow you to say, yeah, but what is. I'm about to say something very unpopular. And I've been trying to pull myself together all day to say it in finding correct verbiage, but I really can't say anything else other than to say this is kind of sort of Bill Clinton's fault. If he had stood in the firing ground and basically said, I shouldn't have done that, and I don't deserve to be president anymore. And I'm not saying that other presidents haven't lowered the bar, but this was personal conduct. This wasn't wartime decisions. This wasn't a manipulation of toppling governments. This was I got Randy with an intern. I got caught blue-handed. You see what I did there? And then irrefutable evidence. Nailed. And I still looked you dead in the eye and went, did not. And you were like, well, it sounds good to me. And then it was like, oh, DNA. Every time. I mean, how do you get stains out of a cushion? I mean, you would think a dude like that would be up on it. Pretty good with his, with how to get the stains out of a curtain, out of a seat cushion, which, by the way, current administration might need to hear. You see what I did there? We're not without merit. The idea that we've been on this slow, gradual slipping slope of if you just hang on long enough and never admit that you've done anything wrong, you'll be fine. You'll be okay. And oh, by the way, I mean, if it's a matter of just simply saying to somebody, was this you? Did you do this? And you're like, I've never seen that. I've never seen that gun before. I didn't kill nobody. And then what it really comes down to is how much money you got, how much influence you have. And we talk about the two tails of government and the two tails of justice, rather, the two sides of justice. I am a white male with blue eyes, always paid my taxes, always worked hard, always voted every election. I might have missed one midterm, sorry. But generally, I'm right in there. I volunteer. I've coached baseball. I've coached rec leagues. Hell, I've even donated the shirts on their backs. But if push comes to shove, and you say to me, I don't like your ideology, I'm kind of screwed. Because I actually put people first. And by the way, sometimes the utilitarian view, and by the way, utilitarian view is the greater good view, is put forth instead of what I could economically get out of this or what is a viability to it. We're in trouble, and it's Bill Clinton's fault, or at least his slippery slopeism. No, he did some good things in office. He did some suspect things in office. He definitely did some suspect things to Monica. But he shouldn't have been blind in that moment and said, fuck, you caught me. I don't know how you guys did it. Oh, DNA? Oh, you're so smart. Yeah, you know what? Bill Clinton wasn't going to starve. Hillary Clinton's ambitions could have been, she could have totally paired that off and said, he was my booster rocket to the Senate. But instead, they acted like a couple of cheeseball grifters. And they just went after the lowest common denominator that there was that could be convinced, and it was you. The bigger challenge in all of this is that not only did they think they could get away with it, they were accomplices to the truth. Now, fast forward 2020, 2016, you know who this douchebag is. But in our lexicon, in our moral compass, we said, wow, just a couple of drops of DNA turned into, well, boys will be boys. I mean, wasn't that the way Clinton was? We got this moral relativity, which, by the way, is a very dangerous thing. It's the what's good for the geese is good for the gander. It's the, well, everybody else is doing it. It's the idea that you give your power away to whatever it is that you feel is the most convenient to satisfy whatever need it is that you have. The scary thing is that we also have created a dialogue of it wasn't me, or everybody else is doing it, or my mother never bought me a pony. And by the way, I am criticizing wokeism as defined by the Republicans. Woke was a stolen thought process of somebody becoming aware and that you couldn't unsee it. But instead, they decided to make fun of it because if they make fun of it, then you'll never be aware of what they're doing. The White House is about to be stock full of billionaires. Power to the people. Which people are going to be in power? Not you and me. Not us. Not the people that are literally going, okay, well, if I pay this on Tuesday, then I can get by to Wednesday, paydays on Thursday. Stop me if you've gone through that thought process before. How about we take a look, in a real honest look? And by the way, you can say, well, Joe Biden was a millionaire. Joe Biden was a public servant. Right or wrong, I didn't agree with all of his politics, but he was in it from the beginning. He was experienced in diplomacy. He was experienced in policy. He was experienced. Instead, what we have are these short-cutting motherfuckers that have bought and sold Bitcoin for the last 10 years, gotten rich off a non-substantive piece of property that doesn't exist. And now they're telling you how to be efficient. Boy, I just dropped trow on that one, didn't I? The people that are in charge of the quote-unquote efficiency department, Elon Musk. Dare we say Elon? Elon Musk is a Nepo baby. And a Nepo baby is defined by daddy's money. Never really had to put, work in. He could sit around and think and create and talk about ayahuasca and smoke cigars and get high on national podcasts. Here's the dirty secret. We talk about the dirty secret about Donald Trump, that it's in plain sight. He's never been successful at fucking anything. He is 0 for 3 for marriages and just let the clock run out on that one. He's 0 for about 15 for publicly traded companies. He had one incredibly failed presidency, and he's not afraid to have two. He's not a good businessman. He's not a good human. He's not a good person. He does not represent my species. Elon Musk makes him look like an angel sometimes. Elon Musk hasn't invented a goddamn thing. Certainly not an electric car. It wasn't his idea. What he did do is get everybody into a room and say, I have all the money. You're going to make me a car, and it's going to run on the sun. That's what I'm going to do. And then you're going to go, and then you're going to, and I need better. Well, it's not just very good. Well, I'm going to fire you. You're going to fired. I'm going to fire you. What, you think you're smarter than me? Speaking, That's my Elon Musk impression, by the way. I want to go to the moon. Mars looks pretty. I want the moon now. Veruca Musk and Donald Trump are cut from the exact same Nepo baby cloth. That's why we talk so good together. And then Donald Trump is like, I've never touched alcohol. And then Elon says, where do I buy it? Elon Musk is he's the wealthiest man in the world, and he's choosing to try and topple governments. And he's pulling strings, and he's a puppet man. Oh, the other one for Doge, Vivek Ramaswamy, is a pump and dump scheme artist. Tech and pharmaceutical, he has driven up the price left and right and dumped his stock and put it in his pocket and said, well, it's an efficiency measure. And I know how things work best. It's a big dick contest, and the judges need to bring a microscope. It is the most failed triumvirate of humans on the face of the planet. I never thought I would say this, but J.D. Vance is the good one. True story. It's amazing that we are here. And in a week from now, we have people that are saying, that are literally going to be in charge going, I want Panama. I think Canada would be good. Canada makes a nice hat. And Denmark, Greenland. I want Greenland. Yeah, I want the big one. It's the biggest island in the world. Unless, of course, you count all the continents that are also islands. But Greenland, strategy. Oh, they're a threat. Never. I don't drink. Let's talk about Denmark for a second. Denmark colonized Greenland out of the hopes of building a whaling community. It wasn't for natural resources. It wasn't for strategy. It was because the good people of Denmark said, "We like your blubber. I like your blubber." What a come online, by the way. I should probably rephrase that. What a great introduction. Hi, how are you? We're from this little tiny place over here. It's Copenhagen. And we can call you Greenland, which is funny because it's mostly ice. And meanwhile, Iceland, which is mostly green. I digress. But Denmark negotiated port entry and then eventually said, "We'll protect you with colonization." And then over the course of years, the Denmark government basically came to the people of Greenland, who were the Inuits, which is basically a North American Indian tribal nation that extends from Greenland to basically Alaska. It goes all along the Nordic. They know the ways of the snow. They understand what darkness looks like, and they know how to take advantage of the light. They are incredibly good fishermen, and they know how to live off the barren land. They are not to be trifled with. They know the secrets of the ice swamp. I'm waiting all day for that one. Denmark came into a peace treaty with them over the years, and I don't necessarily know the exact timing of it, but in the late 1800s and into the early 1900s, they basically had a good working relationship. And then the people of Greenland basically said, we really appreciate the protection and we really appreciate all of this other stuff that you're providing with us, but we really want to just be our own country. And about 1960, they basically said, we're not interested in governing you, but we're interested in having a great relationship with you. We're going to continue to call you a territory, but we want you to have your sovereignty. In other words, you guys take care of your stuff, but Big Daddy Denmark is going to be over here. And basically, we're going to keep our prices low. We're going to work with you guys. We're going to be our primary trade providers. We're going to send stuff from you that are kind of like weird wheat thins, and you're going to eat them and be like, these are delish. But we're also going to be able to say, hey, listen, this is part of our property. One of the things that the Inuit people really wanted is that they never wanted to have their traditions touched. The Denmark government honored that. They've also honored the treaty with the Inuit tribe and the people of Greenland. I'm sorry, how did the United States become in charge of NATO? Was it because we beat the shit out of all of our Native American tribes and basically pushed them off the continent and otherwise starved, killed them with disease or slaughtered them because, well, this land is your land and what's yours is mine? The Denmark government has always been and continues to be an exemplary example of what it's like to work with a tribal nation. Then you have Donald Trump. I want Greenland. Who, by the way, has no understanding of this because it would require him to be able to read or at least click on something other than Fox. He's more than willing to fuck all of that up because of its minerals. It has nothing to do with its place in the ocean. I mean, we've got enough other allies to get ourselves there. We don't need that. What they need is the iron ore. What they need is the magnesium. What they need is the silicon and the zinc. The things that go into powered machinery. The things that the aliens left behind and the humans figured out how to scrap and turn into a thin phone. Let's take a look here for a second at the astrology of things. Oh, look at that. Look at that. So we have a couple of interesting things. I'm going to make this a little bit personal for you. But one of the things that you have to really you had to have felt the effect of was the full moon on Monday. The full moon on Monday had it conjunct, the moon was conjunct to Mars, and it was in opposition, of course, to the sun, which makes it a full moon, and conjunct to Pluto, which makes you very brave. The Pluto sun conjunct is kind of like the I am the storm. It's like, whoa, whoa. And by the way, this transit's going to last for about another week and a half, where it's going to have some influence of Pluto. So be strong, my friend. And also be about action. Be like, nah, ain't nothing going to break my stride. Ain't nothing going to hold me down. Mars in opposition kind of says, calm down, Junior. But the reason why I chose this date was something very interesting to you. The emotional thing of a moon in Cancer presents it to you in such a way where you're kind of like, I don't know what this is, but I just want to rip it all apart. I just want to tear it all down. It's a dark night of the soul without going dark. In full broad moonlight. Then we have this other thing that's going on here, and you can take a look here in the 5th house. You see Lilith and Vesta hooking up here. That's a dirty little minx. Because what that's doing is actually making you learn the lessons of your own personal intimacy, your own personal moral compass. It's making you have tough conversations. It's making you say, do you want to do this? Is this what we want to do? Do I really want to feel this way? Am I comfortable with you? Am I comfortable with me? Are my wounds still... Do I have to pick the scab a little bit, make sure it heals over a little more? It's that kind of feel. But it could also run really deep and be like, oh yeah, this feels good. This is great. That Vesta and Lilith conjunct is going to rule a lot more over the next week or so, 3 weeks anyways. And it's going to make you look at who you are and whether or not you're healed in your deepest, darkest recesses of your mind. What a great time to have political turmoil. Your moral compass will be at front and center. Your dialogue with yourself will be you talk about ADHD. It's also sitting in Scorpio, so you know you're going to go there. You're going to contemplate your life. You're going to contemplate your George Bailey moment. But I also want to point out this Virgo moon. As the moon moves into Virgo here, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you have this delicious opportunity to be of service to others, to give them what they might need that you've learned through your lessons. So this is empowerment. This is action. This is seeing what you have been afflicted by or what you need to heal on. And then the moon, the Virgo moon, pain in the ass Virgo moon, might I say, but not in this spot. In this spot, the Virgo moon comes through and basically says, I'm going to feel better if I help you. So when we look for these little glimmers of like humanity, these next couple of days, these Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's going to be really important for you to find what you can help. And by the way, we can't help everybody, right? But you are going to be able to analyze the things that you've been through and say, oh my gosh, I don't ever want somebody else to feel that way. Maybe I could help them. And by the way, that doesn't mean you're going out there and you're sharing all your deepest, darkest. What it does mean, though, is that you've got that in check and you're going, okay, let's do this. Maybe it's a reunion with somebody. Maybe it's a forgiveness of somebody. Maybe it's actually you saying to them, you did that to me and it wasn't cool. I'm going to do you a favor and tell you you're an asshole. You were a jerk to me. And you needed to hear it from me to say, don't ever treat anybody like you treated me because it was horrible. horrible. You don't get to judge me. Don't hurt me that way. Or it could be, let me get you a cup of coffee. Hey, let's chit chat for a little while. Fight and cry. Yep. There's a little bit of this. There's a little bit of this anger of like, hey, I want to jump in and go like, hey, let's go tackle the world. Let's go do this. Right? No, this is a chance for you to be who you are. By the way, it might also mean that your DNA was found on that dress, and you might have to say, I did that, I'm sorry. It might also be a time for you to say, you know, why am I such a bully? I'm such a bully because I'm hurt. And maybe if people would listen to me and say that my ideas are actually pretty good, or I just want somebody to love me for me, not for my money. Do you imagine if Donald Trump came out and said that? First of all, he'd be mocking us because he'd just be like, see how much money I have? Oh, and by the way, have you noticed that Donald Trump has not helped Rudy Giuliani at all? Do you notice that he hasn't helped anybody that got convicted? How in the hell are we in a world where a man who is a convicted felon is now a president? Aim high? He can't work at fucking McDonald's, everybody. He can't get a job that involves him handling money. He can't work the register. We are afflicted by the bully. All right. Let's take a look at what else is going on in the world. Hey, Patty, I see you there. I'll catch up to you. The Inuit people, the people of Greenland, the ones that the Denmark government basically said, we are going to honor you. We are going to allow you not only to have your sovereignty, but you are also going to be your own people. We don't want to mess with this. By the way, there was I'm trying to remember her name. It was like Rose from Greenland. She was basically in charge of educating everybody for 365 days on Greenland. It was one of my favorite watches, right? And she would talk about things like, what is life in Greenland? Or what are some of the traditions of Greenland? What do we do for holidays? And she basically went through, she gave you like a 60-second clip of what it was like in Greenland. My education level went way the freak up from this because I didn't understand any of it. And when Donald Trump said, hey, we're going to take over Greenland, the first thing I said is Denmark is never going to put up with that, because I knew that the Denmark government is highly protective of Greenland. It's protective of its energy resources. It's protective of its environment. It's protective of its people. You have better bring a fight, because the Netherlands is not a country that sits around and says, oh, just kick over our windmills. I think it's funny that Greenland is basically a sovereign country unto Denmark, which is basically where windmills were invented. There's a back joke into that, right? But as you see here in Greenland, by the way, I think this picture was taken in early summer. Enjoy your iceberg, everybody. Crazy, right? But here's the real reason. He's after the resources. He doesn't care if he topples people. He doesn't give a shit about that at all. Because like a good AC, he's going to just take what's his, or at least profit from what he thinks is his. And if it wasn't for him, we would have never gotten that oil out of Greenland. We're actually looking we're actually looking for Greenland. We want to free its oil deposits is what we want to do. It's for freedom. It's for freedom. Free Greenland from the oppressive nature of the Denmarks, of the autocratic rule of Denmark. Denmark had absolutely been amazing to Greenland. Did they have some conflict? Sure as shit they did. It's human. Were they oppressive? Not in the least. Reach around to Canada. You're not wrong. Oh, and by the way, everything, Panama, Canada, it's all about resources. Panama's a shortcut. Panama, true story. If the U.S. goes in there and takes over the Panama Canal, there will be more dynamite that will go off in Panama than anywhere else in the world combined. Do you think the Twin Towers went down? They'll be like, yeah, we're going to turn this into swampland. We're going to turn this into a flugger nut. Oh, and by the way, when you rebuild it and you militarize the area, good luck, because we're going to get in there and we're going to blow it up again. You will never find peace with this attitude, ever. But taking a look at the map of Greenland, the offshore deposits, and by the way, international water law allows you, is that line that's run all the way around Greenland there. They basically own any of that. The parts that are still in that lighter blue or looking like the ocean, like say in the Denmark Strait, is fair game for them to just start drilling wherever the hell they want. Drill, baby, drill. Too many laws here in the U.S. Too much of a pain in the ass in the U.S. But guess what? If we set up a new territory, we can make up our own rules and kind of go like, Sort of disgusting when you get right down to it. And by the way, the countries that are currently drilling, here's a fun fact. So Denmark's saying, okay, we're not interested in becoming oil barons. Do you know who owns these patents, these permits to be able to drill here? There are 3 main countries involved. Are you ready? The UK, Canada, and Australia. You're like, Brandon, why is the US not in there? Because they said, we don't ever want US hands involved with our country. They've been setting the primer for a long time. They don't want to give their power away. Now, granted, BP is probably the biggest one connected to it, and there's been mergers and all that other good stuff. But the drilling companies are still owned by UK, Australia, and Canada. The ironic thing about this is that the part that's mostly white there is largely unexplored. And right in the center of Greenland is like a 2-mile deep lake. What forms at the bottom of lakes? Well, the amount of resources and ore and copper and gold that could be at the bottom of that there lake could be astronomical. But out of respect for the environment, Denmark says, no, we're not going to do that. We'll touch up the edges. We still have to be an economy. We still have to do what's right by the people of Greenland. But we're not going to take advantage of them. We're not going to strip mine them. Donald Trump has never had a good thought in his life. Why should he start now with Greenland? Now, a word to the people of California. Oof. It's a lot to this one. I've been to California a few times, all to Northern California. And I've been there on business a few times. I'd been to Pleasanton, California. If you've ever been to Pleasanton, California, it is nestled in between San Francisco and San Jose. Do you know the way to San Jose? Just tune in for your earworm. And Pleasanton basically became a tech capital. It became a tech capital. And companies that wanted to become basically that kind of like tech light area of companies that were going to heavily use technology, but not necessarily be a technology company, like say staffing firms or banking entities or things like that. So true story, like my experience in California is pretty, it's Outbacks and Applebee's, man. We did a field trip, did a retreat up to Shasta, flew into Sacramento, drove up I-5, went through the breadbasket of California, where 60% of some produce, from avocados to almonds to pistachios, are all grown there. It is a weird thing of the Sierra Nevadas pushing back air and making it moist in a dry sort of way. But it was a nice drive. However, when you come to learn the history of the area, you realize that it was created because of poor management, because they were reverting the Sacramento River and damming it up. And instead of having it be a flooded, otherwise a large basin water source that would eventually get down through California, you realize that California has been suffocating itself and dehydrating itself for a really long time. And it's a beautiful part of the country. And as we were driving, all 15 of us in one, was it a minivan? What, guys? Was that what it was? I just know that some of you still remind me on the regular that I crammed you all in the luggage compartment. It's not funny. But did you die? But did you die? I promised you a big mountain. But did you die? And on our drive up there, we were driving through this beautiful area, and there was some contemplation as to whether we should fly into Eugene and drive down, or drive in, or fly into Sacramento and drive up. And both of those things were accurate. We were going to go, one was 3.5 hours, one was 3 hours. Either way, we were going to stay the night when we landed, drive there the next day. I don't regret landing in Sacramento and driving up, but I saw some of the most horrific wildfire destruction I'd ever seen. Whole mountains gone. I mean, gone. You know those, like, those cartoon dragons that, like, breathe fire and then just leave just the tinder of a branch or something? That's the way the entire landscape looked. And when I looked into it, they were like, yeah, we've never really gotten good at fighting the wildfires, but we'd like you to, like, put out your campfire before you leave. Okay. An ounce of prevention, I guess. And there were pockets of these areas that were on fire. And when I looked into it, California actually has, at any given time, a dozen wildfires at any given time. So combined with the idea of stopping the Sacramento from flowing down to, say, Sacramento, it would have set a chain of events of waterways throughout the state. But we're so goddamn blessed awesome at managing the land that we just were like, we said stop, damn it. Get it? Because it's water and you put in a damn stop, damn it. Anyways, if I got to explain it. When we all got to Mount Shasta, we lived in yurts for a few days. It was a beautiful setting. It was a beautiful experience. We watched the blue moon come up, the full moon in Pisces come up over Mount Shasta, on the top of Mount Shasta. I will never exchange anything else in my life for those moments. I met a man named Ketchup. I was with some of the most beautiful people on the planet. And we had all gone through something, whatever that something is. And we also got a chance to drink from the source of Shasta. And if you ever get a chance to drink true, natural, wild water, I don't mean the water that you find in the Hudson just down from the silicone plant. I'm talking about things that just came off the mountain, that are always at 34 degrees. The ones that never freeze, never boil. I'm talking about the purest tasting water you can ever come across. And drinking water that came down off of the centuries of melt. This is like polar ice cap stuff at the top that slowly melts over time in drips. And it stays there for centuries. And then on the other end, it slowly melts again and then flows again. And the water is so good. It doesn't even taste like water. It tastes like air. And somebody made the stupidest decision to put a dam there to say, well, you can't have it unless I give it to you. We are the shittiest species. And we justify our things to say, like, well, it's the greater good for, us people's here's. The people of Weed, which, by the way, is a cool little town. Yeah, man, welcome to Weed. What do you need? Talk about a policy that's withstanding. Are we ever going to learn what we're supposed to do next in the right way? I mean, in hindsight, what we should have done is nothing. I'm not saying a little control to make sure it doesn't overflow and take out some homes that are built nearby. How about not build the homes nearby? How about have to walk a little bit to put your toes in the sand? You spoiled brats. I'm all for convenience. I'm all for being pragmatic. But the wildfires that hit LA are not an act of God. Will we get that shit out of our head? Wildfires are a way of life in California for centuries now, because that's how long we've been damming it up. And we've slowly seen the cause and effect of global warming, of global change. Let's not even call it warming anymore. Because of those of you that are in upstate New York that only have like a quarter of an inch of snow on the ground, but it feels like the frozen tundra, you wake up to 12-degree weather like 6 days in a row. Where are we at? What are we doing? You're going to sit here and tell me that that's not some sort of causal effect to any of this? We called it global warming, and of course the dipshits, and we've identified the dipshits by now, sit there and say, well, this is not very, how's that for warming for you? minus 13 degrees. I can do 13 degrees in my shoes. Daddy, I want Greenland. All right, my impression of Don Jr. Hey, everybody, I'm here to take a look at Greenland. I'd like to go over there and snort that pile. I'm sorry, what? It's snow? Thank you. Thank you. California wildfires are horrific. The fact that it hit a populated area the way that it is. Oh, and by the way, the reason why it wasn't on national news when all roads leading to Mount Shasta were on fire was because nobody lived there. Oh my God, that you're right. That's Gavin Newsom's ex-wife. Yeah, Debbie. It wasn't national news because it didn't affect as many people. Right? You know, we don't really seem to be called to action until we don't understand empathy until it happens to us. And here's my challenge for you. I'm about to do a year-long conscious becoming class. And if class was already active, I would be saying this. So I'm going to share this with you guys. Next time you see a picture, tell you what, I'll give you one. I want you to just feel this. I don't want you to think about fire hydrants that don't work, funding that didn't get there, vacation plans of the rich and famous, or the social outtakes or activisms of people that are otherwise good, but we somehow think that they're some sort of rich, spoiled brat because they were on an 80s sitcom and got in trouble once. Think about all the memories that are gone. Think about all the history, the personal history that's just gone. There was a woman that got permission to go back in, and she talked about she didn't want looters to come and take her stuff, which, okay. And when she got there, her building was gone, just gone. And she had moved here from Germany. Her husband had worked for one of the film development companies, and he was a teacher. He taught them how to fix everything. And she came back and she was holding this bell. It was on a hook bell and it was cracked. And she said, I lost my husband a few years ago and I lost him again in the fire. Oh. By the way, there were 13 cemeteries that were burned up. They can't even read the stones right now. They're going to have to go by plot maps and go back and jot down who was where. And this woman with the bell, with a crack in it, all burnt up, she said, this is the last thing I'll ever need. The clapper's not going to work. It's broken beyond recognition. But she found solace in taking the bell that hung outside of a schoolboy home that used to warn him of air raids. When you look at a picture like this, think about the animals that didn't know where to go. You're like, oh, those rich people. Oh, would you lose your horse? Fuck you, they lost their horse. The ones that were smart just open the gates and let them run. Horses will find freedom. And maybe that dog that doesn't know any better is just going to keep going back in looking for you because they are so ingrained in making sure that you're okay. And they'll die doing it. Or that cat that gets so scared that balls up and doesn't realize that they can't breathe. Or that handicapped person that didn't know that it was a fire. And that it spread so quickly that a mother couldn't get back in time and they wouldn't let her back in because it was too dangerous. And she knew. She just knew. What do you feel with these pictures? Do you feel a budgetary restraint? Or do you feel the worthlessness of a firefighter that turns on a hose that runs out of water in a minute and a half? We have to start coming up with solutions. You have to start coming up with real game plans. Yeah, sure, there's the smart, normal stuff that somebody signed off on. And they're going to find out that some of these fire hydrants never, ever had one in a mill town. That we used to have horrific fires growing up. I mean, horrific. We had an entire block burned down in the 80s. An entire block. My family's business was on the other end of the block. They knocked on our door at 11 o'clock at night and said, it's only a matter of time before this fire gets to your livelihood. You might want to come down and get your stuff. Our stuff was a jewelry store. My dad, who we didn't have a gun, stayed up all night sitting on top of these cabinets of jewelry to make sure, didn't want to get looted. Right? I remember that night like it was yesterday. Yep. And every year, a couple of times a year, they do what's called flushing the hydrants. And for about a week, they go to different sections and let it run for about an hour. And the amount of bullshit people, why do we have to do this? This is what a waste. How much does water cost? I'm grateful to see that every single one of those hydrants work. And if they don't, they can't flush it and they're going to fix it. They're going to tack on another 14 cents onto everybody's tax bill. So we all pitch in and buy a new fire hydrant. Congratulations. We're going to name it after you. Oh my God, what's her name? We have a town crier who absolutely just tells everybody what's going on everywhere. The mayor was double parked today for almost 20 minutes. What kind of a world are we living in? The part about the California wildfires that you can take from this is that it's not a new problem and we can't seem to fix it. This tragedy, Nancy, yes. Yep, winner. Fucking Nancy. It's not a new problem and we haven't been able to fix it. This was the climate exchange for wildfire hazard for 2025. Looks like LA is all over this. And basically the center basin that used to be a river isn't. And by the way, wouldn't it be great if the water got all the way down the state? This isn't anything new. There is a climate report of wildfire predictability. This isn't Gavin Newsom, but it's Gavin Newsom. This isn't Donald Trump, but it's Donald Trump. Instead of solutions and ideas of compassion or whatever, we have a pissing contest going on. Well, can't you just put out the fire? You know, that's the snobby guy that goes on a hunting trip and says, "Can't you just tell the bear to go away? They're going to eat me." He's a petulant child. We've established that. And Gavin Newsom, aka Butthead, has become this kind of like nuanced idiocracy of "it's not my problem." And Gavin Newsom is like, "We told them to fix it. You told them to fix it, but did you check to see if they did?" "Well, I shouldn't have to." Okay. You know, it's the parent that says, "Well, my kids should have done their homework." "Well, did you check it?" "Well, I shouldn't have to." And then you have Donald Trump, and then you have Donald Trump saying, "We're not going to give you any money because you voted for the other one. Take your 55 electoral votes and put your fire out with that." That's not America, everybody. That's not a democracy. That's not this country. That's not our species. And listen, I have a limited connection to my understanding of Gavin Newsom. He has some positive things to him, I'm sure, and I'm sure that there's plenty of things to detract. But isn't there a conversation to be able to say, just fix it? And don't say it's about money, and don't say it's about politics. People died. Oh, and by the way, if you don't think that these California wildfires are going to affect you, your insurance policy went up because you now have to cover the other part there. You're like, but no, that's not how it necessarily works. Trust me when I say this, your rates just went up. Your rates go up every single hurricane. They go up every wildfire. They go up every natural disaster and tornado alley. You're like, well, it's high risk. They should pay more. They do pay more, but we eventually pay more because they can no longer profit off of those series of tornadoes that rip through Arkansas and Oklahoma. They have to make it up somewhere else. There were policies that were canceled. Thank you, Tracy. There were policies that were canceled beforehand. Well, they might have known something. Guys, it's called the first of the year. Hey, you know what? I heard China and Russia got together and planted some fires. Okay. I don't give a shit about the conspiracy theorist. I give a shit about the weakness as to why they felt that there should have been a fire planted to begin with. Make yourself fireproof. Make yourself fireproof. If we knew that we had regular testing to make sure that the fire hydrants worked, if we had a way to make sure that we understood when the Santa Ana winds were going to kick up, and by the way, that's another indicator of the ecological disaster that's gone on in this world. Santa Ana winds are a springtime thing. Welcome to January. The El Nino, La Nino effect. Don't give them too much information. They don't understand it. It's about the heat, ain't it? Global warming. It's nice out. I like to golf in February. That's an interesting statement. Doesn't seem to be worth it to own a home. Is that why corporations and capitalists have been buying up properties and apartment complexes? Someone who we know and love around here was woken up on Christmas morning because there was a fire in her complex, in her building. The fire alarms did not go off. This is in upstate New York. This is not in the Philippines. This is not in a third world country. This is not on the outskirts of the world. This is in a sleepy bedroom town in upstate New York, in the suburbs of Albany. The corporations have come in and they don't give a shit anymore. They don't give a shit. They only care about one thing and one thing only, but it is by design. We're getting upset that the lizard is acting like a lizard, when in reality, the only thing a corporation cares about is this profit return, to be able to stroke and benefit those stockholders, which could also be you. Depends upon if you hedge your bets. There's a movie about 10 or 12 years ago called The Great Short. Actually, it was probably, it was about that time. They talked about the 2008 financial crisis. And basically what it was levied was billions, and I mean billions of dollars, that were levied against the short of the collapse of the mortgage market. It literally, and by fruition, by the act of betting against it, proved that they were failing, because what it did is it put it into automatic margin call. It literally put it into a position where you had to call the mortgage home. And either you had to sell it and they had to buy it, or they were put into a crunch. It was subprime stuff, people that were never qualified. I knew the economy was in trouble when they're like, well, Mr. Russ, you can look for a house up to $1 million. They looked around. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then they're like, well, that's the way the economy is. If they can do it, we can do it. And why not? Somebody else that you work with right now is also just as marginally compromised and therefore is in debt for the rest of their lives. I mean, sure, you're probably going to lose the house, but who really cares? You can buy it now. You can say I had it all because this is your only shot. Bought something reasonable instead. Took my lumps wherever they came, but always paid it. I wasn't overextended. I didn't fall for that trap. They literally sold millions upon millions of chunk bad subprime debt to gamble it against its failure. In other words, they would get paid pennies on the dollar to essentially corrupt it to a point of zero value because they can. Those banks got bailed out and they just added 14 cents onto your bill. We are seeing large corporations, not domestically owned. I see you're trying to comment. Do you know who actually is one of the largest owners of Bank of America? The country of China. And then for posterity reasons and transferring reasons and purchasing reasons and so forth and so on, they moved. I have had six different companies own my mortgage. I'm sorry, what? It started out as Bank of America, and then Bank of America got bought out by Countrywide, and then Fannie Mae went sideways, and then this went that way, and that went that way. It's because we didn't have practical, we lost all of our practical guidances. All the rules that we set up fell apart. Maybe it wasn't Bill Clinton's fault. Maybe it was the system. Maybe it was the process. Maybe it was saying, George Bailey, this is well, come here. What are we going to do, Harry Potter? What are we going to do? Pay you for your slum, for your substandard housing? You have to wait and save up half of your life, and for what? A 2-bedroom bungalow, so then you can die in it 10 years later and not enjoy it at all? You're listening to Potter now. Listen to me. I'm willing to take a gamble on you. Sure. Ernie, I got you your house. You and your wife live there together. You build memories. You build happiness. We're the American dream here. You get to own your house, and I get to take on the risk. If it doesn't work out, then the corporations can come in. But if you give it to the corporations right away, well, they're going to make you fill out paperwork and have a job. And sure, I need to know that I'm going to get paid on this, but listen, we're going to spread it out everywhere. It's going to be Phil's house, and it's going to be Dan's house. It's going to be Dave's house. It's going to be the Hendersons and the Josephs and the whoever's. We're going to live together in Bailey Park. We're going to figure this out. But we're going to keep those darn corporations out, because all they want to do is put you into a slum. I would have fixed the hydrants. I would have fixed it. We just didn't have the money, because we were too busy. Because, well, damn it, the Hendersons hit a skid. Remember when little Johnny got sick? Oh, we all came together. We played a basketball game. We made sure they had bread for all of the summer. But we didn't fix the hydrants. Well, you think the corporations are going to do that? Well, at least I told you it wasn't working. The corporations would have put in a fire hydrant that would have gone drilled straight down into nowhere. I'm trying to do right by you. But you don't seem to meet me halfway. You want everything now. You want everything free. Do we live in Bailey Park? Or do we live in the corporate fields? Small building, savings and loan. All right, Elon, calm down. This little Bailey's building savings alone. Well, we're for the little guys. We're for the guys that, well, that big money thing. They're not going to let you. They're not going to give you any money. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between. Maybe Bailey's savings and loan should have given a few less loans, instead of making it everything for everybody. Still made it a little limited and let people build up to it. It would have given motivation. It would have given way to the American dream. Work hard and develop that. But instead, we put in things like Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac and just started giving money away that could never get repaid. Now, I'm not saying that why shouldn't we have things for everybody and make things affordable and all that other good stuff. But do we have to take on the risk? You want to understand why Republicans are so anti-programs is because programs like that literally bankrupted us, and we didn't even hold ourselves accountable. That's why people like Donald Trump were wringing their hands and couldn't wait for their opportunity. Because if you're going to let a $14 billion shortfall just go away in the middle of the night, like some sort of Monopoly game, well, you're not going to be upset if he grabs a few peas along the way. You're not going to be upset if he sells a few secrets. You're not going to be upset if he murders an ex-wife. It's right in front of our eyes. And if you're critical about it, if you're going to be critical about it, you've got to take the entire thing in perspective. Just don't. Trump is the creation of our ignorance, of our apathy, of our inability to apply laws fucking anywhere. And I'm not talking about the speeding ticket, the fundraiser local speeding ticket. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about crime. I'm talking about these self-righteous, self-indignant people that figure out a scheme and then say, how much is this going to cost? You know, it's that brat dad on Law and Order that says, what will it take for this to go away? My son didn't mean it. And then they go, he murdered somebody. Yeah, so the price tag's higher. What's your point? How much? I can get it. What? We think that the world is driven by shakedown. You know, by the way, see also your local community fundraiser by the police. Do you know why I pulled you over? Because you miss your grandmother? It's a great book. But where do we go? Do we have to rebuild this at our core? And what is our core? I think our core is, if you want to change the energy, you don't change it by telling people what to do. Because they're going to critique how you said it, why you said it, where you said it. But if they see you act an example, don't even get me going on military. I mean, listen, can anybody name one thing the United States government has done well for its people? Just fucking one. We treat our military like shit, active and retired. Their veterans don't get anything. You can be part of the Air Force. Blah. No. Another entitlement level program that doesn't freaking work. Sorry. Might be where you bank, but you should be able to kind of, they put you in a bad position, veterans. Well, you don't really qualify, but we're going to give you the money anyways because you're a veteran. But you still got to pay it back like it normally would. So there's not, the application process is easy, but the execution is still the same. So you're still going to have to pay it. And even though you haven't shown that you can pay it, yeah, I know you're a veteran on disability and you don't really match the dollar amount, but you're going to make $30,000 a year and your mortgage payments are going to come to $27,500. That's the shit they're doing. They're like, oh, well, you're on a disability, you can't work. Well, you get more disability. Oh, your disability comes to a certain dollar amount. Well, so long as it covers what we need, that's all that matters. You have zero cost of living and you can't even eat. I can cite 20 examples of that of people that I know directly. Then you go into credit card debt. Then you go into mortgage debt. Then you go into reverse mortgage shit. Before you know it, they own your crap anyways. Oh, too bad. Military veterans is just another section of the United States that is preyed upon. Just like our elderly, just like our handicapped, just like our minorities, quite frankly. What is the standard if you're always going to move the line? By the way, has anyone come up with a single thing that the United States government does well? Debt. Okay. I mean, it doesn't print money directly. It created this kind of side project called the Federal Reserve, which has nothing to do with the government at all. Yeah, and as soon as you get hurt, if I get hurt and I can't perform, I'm screwed. Just to let you know, if this isn't an eye-opening moment, Vladimir Zelensky offered to send firefighters to Los Angeles to fight the blazes. Who's your daddy? I don't really have anything, but I'm still willing to give whatever it is I have to you because you need this more than I do. If you weren't pulling for that fucking guy before, you are now. Now you can say that he did it as an active stunt. You can say that if you want. Then in that case, he's an incredibly intelligent stunt man. But where have we gotten in this world that we now have the reputation we don't even solve our own problems? Give me Greenland and the 51st and Panama. Panama. Ba, 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 da, da. Sit down between my legs and ease the seat back. President Trump's here. I have a friend of mine that served in 1989. He was actually my babysitter. His name is Kevin, and he was hysterical. Talk about a great male influence to me. He was an Eagle Boy Scout, joined military, and he was down in Panama with Noriega. And he came back and he goes, and I saw him at the corner store. I'm like, hey, how are you? He was just one of my favorite people. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing home? He goes, well, I'm on leave for like a month and then I got to go back and we've got another assignment and whatever. And I'm like, hey, you're doing anything, what'd you do? I heard you were, shipped out. I don't know where. And he goes, oh my God, we went to Panama. And he's telling me about how they set up these PV speakers. And oh my God, there's so many fun stories. So I had a record player. It was one of those Fisher Price record players, but it played normal records because it had a drop diamond needle type of thing. And we figured out how to rig it. My parents had the stereo console, the one that you rolled up the front. And the record player wasn't working for whatever reason. Like the turnstile didn't, it needed a new belt or whatever. It came off, as we understand later. But we're going to take this Fisher Price badass. We're going to wire it. So here he is. He's popping the thing open. He's finding the red and the yellow. He's figuring out how to jack it into the speakers, into this big console. So off of this, we're we're listening to Ambrosia. Because that's how much I feel for you, baby. Yeah, I just went there. The spy, listen, we got all the cool things when you own a jewelry store. We got the spy gel record collection. And every year they came out with an album with it was basically that's what I call music. Way back when. Right? It's an interesting take, isn't it? It's an interesting comment. As if we haven't given Ukraine enough money to send some firefighters. KTEL, that's it. Do you think that the money that we give Ukraine is a bribe? A payoff? A supply chain? That's what I call music. And aren't we kind of in a position? What happens? So I am going to predict one thing. I think that the Ukraine war will come to an end. I think that Russia will keep the Donbass region, and I think that yep, clearly I was about to make a point. Of course I cut out. Of course I did. But Ukraine war will end. Russia will keep whatever it's occupying. In the name of peace, Zelensky will say, we're good. There will be freedom fighters that will emerge. There will be the catastrophe that is coming in Europe. That will be the NATO disbandment of basically the U.S. trying to pull out of it. Russia's going to try and take it over. That'll be fun. And it will eventually culminate into whatever is going to go on in Israel and Syria. I really want Penny to move out of that region. That's a prediction. Somebody doesn't like what I'm saying. Somebody doesn't like what I'm saying. Yeah, Tracy, it's funny. People do. And they're usually things like this. That's my favorite. Penny's going to go back to the UK. But here we go, guys. I want to thank you guys for joining. We'll be back on Thursday to do a shuffle up and heal. I am getting ready. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Rachel. We're going to do a shuffle up and heal. I'm going to be working with some other guests, some people we've been together with, some people that we're moving. Austin next week. I'm going to be in Houston right after that. If you're anywhere near there, go check out my website, tbrandonruss.com. I can't believe I didn't type that once today. What is up with that? tbrandonruss.com. Go ahead and check out what I've got coming up. If you're not on the email and the website and all that other good stuff, please do. I've got a newsletter coming out here next week. You're gonna love the content that I'm sending your way, guys. It's really good stuff. I want to thank you guys for being part of my journey. I hope I gave you some insight, some solace, some real practicality on how our intuition has to be not manipulated, not be drawn out of fear, but rather rise to the occasion so that we can become the best version of ourselves in all the work we're meant to do. I'm going to give you guys a heart tap to remind you that we love and care for one another and to simply keep going. You guys are the best. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you guys next